What's up, guys? I got a really long show for you today, so I really don't want to keep all of you on here for 20 minutes, but just so you know what topics I'm including in here, I've got topics on training frequency, push-pull routines, beginner weightlifting programs, ulcerative colitis, and diet. And finally, I got one on standard ketogenic diets and what your lower protein intake threshold is. So for those of you who don't want to watch the whole thing, skip through and get to the topic you really want to check out. For those of you who do want to watch the whole thing, thank you. I'm so glad that some people really want to see me and hear me, but I'm sure most of you don't. So I hope it's interesting. I've had a really busy week this week, super crazy. My clothing company is doing really well right now, so I'm taking a step back from one-on-one training. I'm keeping the clients I have, but not taking on any new clients. Those of you who are interested in checking out or working with me, you can still work with me on the Mastermind Training Group. But again, that's up to you guys. I don't push sales on anybody. And I'll put all the links below if you want to check them out. So let's get into the information. I really hope that this show is informative for you guys. What's your take on push-pull leg routines and training each twice a week? Where you are in your journey. And I think push-pull legs routines are a really great way to set things up. I don't know that they're the way people do them currently, that they're really that different from the classic bro splits. And I think people like to emphasize differences there rather than highlight the similarities because they're trying to sell new shit. But here's the thing, and here's what I recommend as far as training volume. And I wrote about this a few weeks ago. You can see my blog on training frequency on chrisalbertfitness.com. If you are an obese client and you need to lose weight, you need to be training as much as possible. You need to have as much activity level as possible. Now, that doesn't mean killing yourself in the gym or, constantly running miles and things like that, but that means you're moving all the time. So if you're sitting at your desk and you're doing work, if you're obese, you need to get up every half hour, 40 minutes and do a set of air squats or walk around your office or go get a drink of water or, just stand and move. Because one of the biggest things to rebuilding your insulin sensitivity is going to be your movement, your activity levels. If you are a beginner strength athlete, my recommendation there is to only hit the main movement patterns once per week. Why? Well, here's the thing. If you're a beginning strength athlete, your goal right now is not to get strong. Your goal is to master the movement patterns, right? And the more you train a movement pattern incorrectly, knowing that one of the laws of physiology is that muscles model along the lines of stress, the more you train that movement pattern incorrectly, you are going to develop significant muscle imbalances. So my recommendation is until you have perfected your form by an objective standard on each of the three main movements, I would not be doing them more than once a week, and I would not be doing them with anything close to maximal loads. So all you beginner guys who I see in the gym trying to squat 300 pounds when you can't, you really shouldn't be doing that. You need to take control of your ego and say to yourself, I really want to be good at this for the course of my lifetime. And so I'm going to master each movement and perfect it before I listen to my ego and start loading on the weight. You will get jacked, you will get swole, you will get strong, you'll get everything you want in easier time if you do it the right way. And then for my people, my bodybuilders and my intermediate and advanced bodybuilders, and all of them come from strength. So what I would say for them is yes, a push-pull legs routine twice a week would be good. But at the same time, with most of my clients, I do not have them hit the same movements twice a week. I have my clients stimulate their body parts twice a week. And so what does that mean? So you might do a chest day one day, but on your shoulder day, your upper chest is also getting stimulated. And vice versa, on your chest day, your shoulders are also getting stimulated. So and I guess what I'm trying to get across here is that your muscles don't know what day it is. They're not like, oh man, it's leg day. I'm gonna turn off the upper body and we're just gonna work on these squats. Or they don't say, oh man, it's back day. I'm gonna turn off these hamstrings and we're just gonna focus on back. No, if you are doing everything properly and you are performing your main lifts properly, then the synergists and the antagonists of the main muscles that you're trying to work are also going to get stimulated. And so that's what I mean by stimulating twice a week. So you'll have 2 upper body days and 2 back/lower body days. And that's the way I approach things. Some other people approach things a little bit differently, and I'm not saying that they're wrong, but for me, this was the logical thing, and I've seen my best results from it, and a lot of my clients have seen their best results.
What's the best strength training program for starting out?
So as far as beginning programs go, the main focus, as I said, for a beginning program should be for you to perfect your main lifts. And what that means is that your sole purpose is to perfect the form. If that means you're working with a broomstick, that means you're working with a broomstick. And so every exercise that's in your program and your training volume, your training frequency should be focused on getting you optimal form. So there's a few elements here that we need to consider. One, incorporating the main movements in some fashion, right? So every workout should center around a main movement or a derivative of the main movement. What do I mean by derivative? So you have your squat, but you also have your front squat. And I think that's just as important for beginners to train that type of exercise like the front squat as it is to train the back squat. And the reason is because for a lot of you, for your athletic careers, for your performance, for your strength, a front squat brings about a lot more benefit. If you get it perfectly, it forces you into good posture. It forces you to work your core. It forces you to strengthen yourself for the movement. And in addition to that, you should be practicing your hip hinge, working on a Romanian deadlift or some kettlebell swings to practice that hip hinge, and working on your mobility as well. For the upper body, of course, the overhead press and the bench press are extremely important. But in addition to that, you're going to need to be working your triceps and your rear deltoids, because those are both muscles that are going to be supporting you in those lifts and helping you to use proper form. You're also going to need to be doing some pulling, not just deadlifting, but doing rows to strengthen your back and to strengthen your rear deltoids to, again, support you for those movements. So my big recommendation for a beginning lifter here is this. I would do 4 days a week, no more than that, and each day would be focused around one of the big main movements: the squat, the overhead press, the deadlift, or the bench press. And in those training sessions, I would have 2 to 3 assistance exercises that help to strengthen your supporting muscles, your synergists and your antagonists, in order to perfect your form and to make you strong enough to perform the movement properly. Because there's a lot of people who get into this who aren't strong enough in the first place to actually do a squat, even with no weight. And then the main movements should also have derivatives that you alternate here and there. So for instance, a lot of my beginning clients, I'll have them alternate between a back squat and a front squat so that they're getting used to both movements. But again, as far as training frequency goes, I suggest performing each main movement once a week, fully focusing during the workout on just perfecting the form. We don't worry about weight until you perfect the technique. And then after that, we can start working in progressions and working in linear progressions to get you stronger, but not before that.
How do you strengthen your core?
So there's a couple of things here. One, I would make sure that you are actually using a lot of your main movements to help with your core work. Now, that's not to say, some people are like, oh man, you got to suck your belly in during squats and everything like that. No, but if you're doing something like front squats, that can really help to develop your core. That means standing with a tight stomach, and that doesn't mean sucking in. That means keeping your chest out, keeping your sternum raised, and using that core to stabilize your spine, right? Because I see a lot of people when they're squatting, they go forward like this, and that's because all you're doing is working on your rectus abdominis here, and the rectus abdominis' purpose is flexion, and that means you're going to come forward like this. But if you're working on the rest of your core, your obliques, all the surrounding muscles that hold your spine up by doing things like front squats, which I think are the perfect exercise, especially for a beginner, then you are going to become stronger through your core work. Now, what else is good there? Well, planks, I think, are a really good way of doing it, especially dynamic planks, where you have to either move your arms forward and down. It's like a dance. And then, I also think that landmines are a really great way of doing it. And also kettlebell swings. If you're doing a Russian kettlebell swing and you're coming up, you've got to stabilize yourself at this point and then come way down. So I think those are all really great movements. As far as working your rectus abdominis and what everybody wants, those abs, yes, you can do that, but don't think of that as core work, because if you crunch during a set of squats or a set of deadlifts, your spine's going to be in trouble.
I'm 340 pounds. What's the most effective way to burn fat?
What I want to tell you is this. The biggest thing that you have to do at that point, because your condition at that point is a health risk, is get your blood checked. And you have to get your blood sugar checked, specifically your hemoglobin A1C. I would also get your C-reactive protein checked, and that's a test for inflammation. If either of those are high, then what we really need to do is look at caloric restriction. There's just no tricks around it. Going on a ketogenic diet at that point is going to be counterproductive for you, because of the levels of inflammation and because of the high amount of blood sugar. Adding a lot of fat to your diet is simply going to, It's going to cause higher levels of inflammation and increase your risk of heart disease. So you'd be able to get on a ketogenic diet once those blood markers are done with. But my suggestion for you is first get a blood test. If the blood test comes out with them as being high, then I really recommend a calorically restricted, very balanced diet. So reducing your calories and then moving as much as possible, right? Not sitting down, using a standing desk, walking around as much as possible. After every meal, you should be walking around for at least 10 minutes to normalize your insulin levels. Another thing I definitely recommend is making sure that your micronutritional bases are all covered, getting yourself tested for vitamin D deficiency, getting yourself tested for zinc deficiency, and lack of those elements, if you are deficient, can definitely slow down fat loss. And then, of course, making sure you're eating lots and lots of green leafy vegetables, drinking tons of water. Again, I can't put together a whole program for you because I don't know exactly who you are or what your blood markers say. But biggest recommendation there is get your blood tested. Find out what's wrong. Find out if there's anything you need to be aware of before you're going into a diet. And
What do you think about cold thermogenesis?
all right, somebody asked me about cold thermogenesis and whether or not it's effective. There's a lot of stuff out there. I am not the expert on this, but the idea here is that you have brown adipose tissue up here around your shoulders and your upper back, and that brown adipose tissue gets activated in the cold. And once it gets activated, it aids and helps in eliminating other fat tissue from the body. I have very limited experience with this. I do take cold showers every morning, and I do cold exposure every day. What's the reason for that? Well, one, the science and from the studies I've seen, cold is shown to be efficacious in burning fat. But two, even if it's not, then isn't I'm not spending any money on being cold. I'm not, wasting time on being cold. I'm not, you know, what's it called? Giving anything. There's no real risk there. The only risk is I get a little bit cold and a little bit shivery and a little bit uncomfortable. And my full belief is that I want to be a little bit uncomfortable. What if I have to wait outside in the cold for something? You know, maybe exposure to the cold would be a good thing. I was in a cold weather unit in the Marine Corps, and we used to train in Arctic environments. And, you know, that's what a friggin' real Spartan does. They don't bitch out on the cold. So my advice there is, if you're curious about it, just try it. Dude, there's no real risk there. It's free. Cold showers are freaking free. Ice is free. Being outside, that's free. It's wintertime, especially now, for a lot of you throughout the country. So, yes, science has shown that it's pretty efficacious. And yes, you should go out into the cold just to try it, see what it's like. If you don't like it, then sorry. You don't have to do it. But if you want to try it out, it's free. Send me pictures or videos of you guys freezing your asses off and cursing my name.
What's the ideal diet for someone who lives and has ulcerative colitis?
Now, I personally have ulcerative colitis, and so I have a bit of experience here. Now, that being said, I'm not a doctor and I don't pretend to be one. So, your medical advisor, your doctor, is going to be your prime point of contact in deciding what to do. I will tell you from my perspective what I've done to limit the effects and the symptoms of ulcerative colitis on my training. First two things, I've eliminated most dairy products and eliminated all gluten. The thing is, one, I've been shown to be lactose intolerant. Now, I still eat butter and I still drink kefir. And on the occasion, I'll have a little bit of heavy whipping cream, but I always get really bad side effects if I do. So lately, I haven't been doing that. If you have ulcerative colitis, the chances are you're also lactose intolerant. And the chances are you're also gluten sensitive. And the reason why is because anything that's not easily digestible by your intestinal tract is going to cause a bit of inflammation, because your body's going to recognize it as a foreign object. So particularly like casein protein, which is harder to digest, and gliadin, which is the protein in gluten that people with celiacs and gluten intolerances react to, then your body's going to probably react poorly. So I would get rid of dairy, and I would get rid of any bread, grains, or anything like that that have gluten in them. Two, I would eliminate sugar as much as possible. Sugar is highly inflammatory. Processed sugar, I don't mean fruit, but processed sugar is highly inflammatory, and it can really cause you to go into a UC flare-up. So I would get rid of that. And in addition to that, the levels of inflammation it causes can actually have a very big effect on your joints and ligaments, which is another big concern if you have UC, because your high levels of total body chronic inflammation are going to inhibit your recovery and could eat into your connective tissue, causing an injury. So particularly if you're a lifter and you have UC, make sure you do that. Three, make sure that you are adding sodium and drinking lots of water and making sure that your electrolytes are stabilized. People with UC have a tendency to lose a lot of water, and you can get dehydrated extremely easy. So make sure you're not afraid of salt. I try to opt for one of the healthy options like Himalayan pink salt and sea salt and things like that. But make sure you're getting your salt in. Four, eat gut healthy foods. So fermented foods, probiotics, fermented foods like kimchi, raw sauerkraut, kefir. Those things will all have a really positive effect on your gut flora, including things that are rich in butyrate. Butter is the richest source of butyrate, and yes, it's dairy, but doesn't have a whole lot of lactose in it. Grass-fed butter is a very good source of butyrate. So use that. Make sure you're getting your fats in. Fats will help to normalize those hormonal levels, because the chances are if you have UC, your testosterone levels are going to get impacted and your cortisol levels are going to be up very high. So make sure that you are eating your fats, but avoid omega-6 fats. Those are fats that come from plant sources and nut sources, and avoid roasted nuts and avoid roasted nut butters. Omega-6 raises inflammation in the body. Omega-3 decreases inflammation in the body. If you're going to eat meat, make sure it's organic and grass-fed. If not, a lot of the fats that you're going to be eating from them can be high in omega-6 because factory-raised cattle are fed grain. And in addition to that, they also get lots of estrogens from the hormones used on them, which can also, again, lead to stress on the body and inflammation. Avoid, and you mentioned you can't take whey. I would avoid whey. I would avoid most supplements that have a muscular dude on the label, and make sure that you are supplementing with things like vitamin D, because chances are if you have UC, then you are low in vitamin D. Omega-3s, make sure that you're getting your vitamin C in, make sure that you're getting magnesium in before bed, and curcumin would be an ideal supplement for you. It's an herb that is shown to decrease inflammation and enhance gut health. As far as other things you can do, I would definitely recommend including bone broth or stock in your diet. It's been shown to really help with gut health, and it's also got a lot of good fatty acids in it and amino acids that can help you with preserving your lean body mass during a flare-up. And as far as other supplements you can do, rather than going with branched chain amino acids, which turn to sugar in the bloodstream, I would go with essential amino acids. Essential amino acids are actually more efficacious at repairing tissue and helping you preserve lean body mass. So especially when you're in a flare-up, then essential amino acids would be a much better option than branched chain amino acids.
How low can protein go on a standard ketogenic diet?
And the answer is this. Science actually has a very solid answer for this. It's between 0.5 to 0.75 grams, which has been shown to be most efficacious for people building muscle. You could go as low as 0.5. I've actually gone lower than that in my daily diets, especially when I've had UC flare-ups before and I've preserved my muscle mass pretty well. The whole 1 gram of protein per pound body weight is pretty dumb. And I hope that more and more fitness professionals will understand how dumb it is, read the science, and see exactly how much people are ruining their bodies through toxicity and poor gut health because they're eating pounds and pounds of meat all day long. So yeah, 0.5 is the lower threshold. All right, guys, so that was a really long one. I hope I was straightforward with my answers. If there's ever a question about anything, you can always hit me up at gettingshredded@gmail.com. For those of you who want deeper answers and want some more of my personal tips, you can always join the Mastermind training group. And then you can always check out all the free information I put out there here on this channel and on my webpage. So just check those out, man, and that's it. All right. Happy holidays.